Good morning, friends. How are you all doing today? I am so excited to be talking to you guys again today. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jackie, and I am going to be telling you guys your story for today. So, our story today is going to be found in Daniel chapter 2, and it is about King Nebuchadnezzar and his dreams that he's been having. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started. So, our story starts with King Nebuchadnezzar in his second year being king. And he starts having these dreams that are kind of scaring him a little bit. He doesn't really know what they mean or what they're supposed to mean. And so he calls on people that he thinks might be able to answer, what does my dream mean? He calls on mediums, he calls on sorcerers, he calls on all these different people to see if they can tell him what his dream means. So, after bringing all of these people into the palace to interpret his dream, the king says, "Tell me the dream first, and then interpret it for me." And these people are like, "That doesn't make sense. Like, you have to tell us the dream first, that way we can interpret it." And the king says, "No. If you're able to tell me what my dream was and interpret it for me, then I will bless you with riches and honor and glory. Otherwise, I know you're faking it." Now, all of the people that the king brought in to interpret his dream and tell him what his dream was started talking amongst each other. They said, what the king is asking us to do is impossible. We can't read his mind. We can't read the dream that he had already without him telling us what it was. What he's asking us to do has never been asked before, and the only people who can do this live amongst the gods. They don't live on earth. Now, the king overheard all of these people talking about how what he was asking them to do was impossible. And this made him so upset, and he ordered all of the wise men in Babylon to be brought in and executed. And our friend Daniel was included in this list of people. Now, as we know, Daniel is very, very close with God. And he had asked the people who were coming to arrest him, "Why is this decree so harsh? Why does the king want all of us dead?" And the guard explained what had happened. And Daniel responded with, "Let me talk to the king. Let me give the king an interpretation of his dream." So Daniel went to his house before he went to the king, and he told his friends, he said, "Hey, here's the situation. We need to pray really quick because the king is trying to kill us, and I don't want to die, and I don't want you guys to die either." So the four of them, it was Daniel, and then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And the four of them prayed, and this is what they said. They said, "May the name of God be praised forever and ever, for the wisdom and power belong to him. He changes the times and seasons. He removes kings and establishes kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals the deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. I offer thanks and praise to you, God of my fathers, because you have given me wisdom and power. And now you have let me know what we asked of you, for you have let us know the king's mystery." And then after that, they knew what the king's dream was. So Daniel went to the king and said, "Hey, don't kill all of these wise men. I know what your dream is and what it means." Now, the king was really surprised by this. He goes, "You can tell me what my dream was and what it meant." And Daniel goes, "Yeah, all of these people who you have brought in aren't able to answer the question, aren't able to solve this mystery that you've presented to them. But there is a God in heaven that is able to solve mysteries and answer those questions." And Daniel told him that King Nebuchadnezzar was revealed to know what's going to happen in the last days. All right, so this is where it gets really exciting. So Daniel looks at the king and says, "Your Majesty, while you were in your bed, thoughts came to your mind about what will happen in the future. The revealer of mysteries has let you know what will happen. As for me, This mystery has been revealed to me not because I have more wisdom than anyone living, but in order that the interpretation can be made known to the king and that you can understand what's going on in your head. And so this is kind of where we start to get into what the dream was and what it means. So Daniel started out telling the king about his dream. He said, as you were watching, a colossal statue appeared. A giant statue appeared. And the statue was tall and dazzling. And it kind of looked terrifying. Its head was made of pure gold. Its chest and arms were silver. Its stomach and thighs were bronze. Its legs were iron. And its feet were partly iron and partly fired clay. And Daniel said, as you were watching this statue, a piece of stone broke off without anyone touching it, and it hit the statue on its feet that were made of iron and clay, and it crushed them. And then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all shattered and hit the ground, thrashing on the floor. And then it says, the wind carried them away, and not a trace of them could be found, but the stone that struck the statue became a great mountain, and it filled the whole earth. And Daniel starts to explain what that means. He said, this was the dream. Now I will tell you the interpretation. Your Majesty, you are King of Kings. The God of heaven has given you sovereignty, power, strength, and glory. Wherever people live, or wild animals or birds, he has handed them over to you to make you ruler over them. You are the head of gold. And then Daniel goes on to say, after you, there will be another kingdom, and it's going to be inferior to yours, and then another, and a third, and following on. And that's what all of the different metals are. And the fourth kingdom will be as strong as iron, and iron crushes and shatters everything. And like iron that smashes, it will crush and smash all the others. You saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's fired clay and partly of iron. It will be a divided kingdom, though some of the strength of the iron will be in it. You saw the iron mixed with clay, and that the toes of the feet were partially iron and partially fired clay. Part of the kingdom will be strong, and part of it will be brittle. You saw the iron mixed with clay. The peoples will mix with one another, and they will not hold together, just as iron does not mix with fired clay. So what he's saying is, all of these people, they're going to mix in together, but they're not going to get along. They're going to be integrated together, and they're going to live together, but they're not going to get along. All right, so Daniel goes on to tell the king, he says, in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed. It will endure forever, and it will overpower all of these other kingdoms. And he goes on to say, you saw a stone break off from the mountain without a hand touching it, and it crushed the iron, bronze, clay, silver, and gold. The great God has told the king what will happen in the future. The dream is true, and its interpretation is certain. And King Nebuchadnezzar was so impressed with Daniel that he rewarded him with all of these gifts, and made him ruler over an entire section of the kingdom. He said, you are going to be in charge of all of the other wise men and all of this part of the kingdom. And Daniel said, okay, but my friends need to be a part of this too. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego need to be a part of this too. And the king said, okay. All right, guys, so that is where our story today ends. So, just to recap, King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. Nobody was able to tell him what the dream was or what it meant except for Daniel. And Daniel was like, hey, here's a little bit of what's going to happen in the future. God has blessed you with knowing what's going to happen in the future. And because Daniel was able to interpret the dream and tell the king what his dream was, he was rewarded by the king with treasures and power. And that is where our story leaves off for today. So let's go ahead and pray. God, thank you so much for today, and thank you for every single person listening. I want to thank you especially for all of the kiddos that are listening and just absorbing everything that you have to say through your word. God, I pray that every single person listening has a fantastic week and that they continue to see you move through them and through the people around them. In your name we pray. Amen.